the second ordinary meeting of the Queen's University of Belfast Literary and Scientific Society. Apologies for the change in venue, the slightly late start, and the lack of seats. Don't get there. You'll be fine. It's really what you're here for is debate, right? It's not comfort or ease of accessibility, and that's what we have tonight. An excellent debate is lined up for you this evening, where we are here to discuss the motion of this House believes Islam is compatible with Western liberalism. But before that, we have just a few bits of parliamentary business to get through. So, first of all, announcements. The only one that I can think of right now, is that I've made a slight mistake last week, unfortunately, as I want to do. Mr Bradley here had set up quite a wonderful system for the Freshers' Fair stall, a wonderful online system to record people's information and to timestamp it, and just general good stuff for recording your information. And unfortunately, I, like a fool, forgot about it and instead opted for the pen and paper equivalent. So, whilst we do still have that list, it is rather bare bones. It has only the information that the union requires. So, there's an online Google form which we will be releasing. It is actually up right now. You can access by going to signup.literific.com. We would ask that everybody who wants to be a member go to that form. The link will be posted on the official page on the Literific, and basically fill it in. The only things that are still required are the things that the union requires. So that's your name, student number, and an email address. It can be any email address. But we also wouldn't mind gathering some other things, such as what course you're on, what year you're at, and if you've heard about us in various ways. It's just handy because it helps us tailor the debates to be more interesting to you. So yes, please do that. Even if you've already got a membership card, do it again, because while we could copy all the information on the paper sheets by hand, that takes one person a lot of time, or individually it takes you a few seconds to do the online thing. So we would be very appreciative if you could do that for us. Otherwise, yes, we still have term cards and membership cards, so if you didn't get one last week and you paid, or if you'd like to pay or you'd like to join, please speak to either myself, Mr Dunn or Mr MacDonald at the end, and we shall take your money from you and give you a lovely card in return. This is absolutely not the time, Ms Belabbes, but is it relevant to what I've just said?
Yeah, my question is, if you've already gotten a card, do you need to fill out the Google form?
It would, yes, please do.
Okay.
Again, it'll take 2 minutes. If you only want to fill in the required fields, it'll take 20 seconds. But yes, because we also still haven't given you no one who has a membership card has a membership number yet, so this will speed up that process as well. Otherwise, something briefly entered my mind and then quickly exited again, so we shall simply proceed, desperately trying to remember what that was now, to the reading of the minutes of the first ordinary meeting. They shall be read by our lovely secretary, Mr Peter Dunn, and they are off to debate. This House would not go to Queen's. Please welcome him to the floor.
The second ordinary meeting of the 169th session of the Literary and Scientific Society took place on the 28th of September 2017 and was attended by 66 members. President Calvin Black began proceedings by introducing all members of council, including those who had just been elected at the EGM, which took place just the day before. Private members' business unfortunately began on a rather sombre note. The President had been informed that the father of the Honorary Life member Andrew Crothers, BBC journalist and author Seamus Cowters, had sadly passed away. The House thus unanimously gave its condolences to Mr Cowters and his family. After this, Miss Kira Campbell then produced a fine, a splendid bottle of Tesco's £5 wine they had. Ms Campbell also wanted the House to know that she got lost 3 times finding Tesco's on University Road. I don't know how anybody can get lost 3 times finding Tesco's on University Road, but she asked me to have some extra accommodation in the minutes. So there's your accommodation hearing. Private members' business was thus continued with one of the most controversial issues up there, the reunification of Ireland, that of pineapple on pizza. We swiftly moved on, and then a motion was given to Matthew Bradley to receive an applause for handling last Wednesday's EGM. He didn't just get an applause, I think it's fair to say he got a standing ovation for his EGMing the week before, and that was unanimously passed. And two was a motion to applaud Fionnbharr Rodgers, who stood for secretary in what was a very, very, very close election. The President's question was kicked off by Scott Moore, who asked the President that considering there were up to 50 sessions in Belfast a week, probably more, and only one Literific debate, shouldn't we have more Literific debates? And the President responded by referring to his and the rest of the Council's sanity first, by saying that one Literific debate a week was probably the best for all of our health. Honorary Life Member Ms Aicha then asked the President what he had for breakfast. Shreddies and cranberry juice, which was far too respectable and not nearly interesting enough for the approval of the House. Mr Matthew Sullivan brought up the very pertinent matter of Council addressing the issue of a time, nothing that I would of course know about. The President assured Mr Sullivan that this important issue was going to be addressed swiftly by Council. Mr Hugh Dobbin also asked the President if he could give a brief history of that society for new members, and thus Mr Black, in stunning glory, recanted our long esteemed history, and the less esteemed mentions were also mentioned. Kieran Gallagher, our guest chair, then introduced the motion for the night. This House would not go to Queen's. Up first for proposition was Honorary Life Member Ms Aicha. She started her speech by beckoning back to her time as a fresher, seduced by the splendour of the Lanyon building that we're in tonight, and riled in with people telling her that Queen's is the Oxbridge of Ireland. You can all make of that what you will. She argued that Queen's was no longer an educational establishment, but a research establishment. As a student from England, he proceeded to bemoan the focus of Queen's and students for profit, even though they put massive amounts into GB students and to the benefit of that herself, rather than education. Her impassioned speech called everyone to stand up against Queen's, and the House stayed sitting down. First up for opposition was Mr Peter Moore, who too firstly commented on the prettiness of the Lanyon building, saying you have to join the Literific to actually make use out of it, but that's that. And then went on to repeat that the changes that Queen's had made ensured that the university's students were the cream of the crop. Peter also bigged up Belfast, explaining that employers were appreciative that English, Scottish and Welsh students and internationals could adapt to this, well, interesting and wonderful place. Second up for the proposition was Miss Kira Campbell. After a bit of audience interaction, she proclaimed that we should all go to Europe. While most of the House were more concerned about going to the pub, she continued. She went on to argue that we live in a country, you could live in a country where you could marry who you loved, and couldn't get someone's religious background by their name. All sounds really odd, really. But then she moved on to what was a crucial point in the debate: cheap pints. Other countries, she argued, were much more economical for beverage consumption. Continuing the argument for opposition was Mr Matthew Sullivan, who argued that Northern Ireland isn't really that bad, each to their own, and actually praised the cheap pints of the speakeasy. As a computer science student, Matthew is of the official approved useful degree category, so thus argued that everyone has the fantastic facilities that he enjoys. Closing the argument for the proposition was Mr Ollie Donnelly, who'd come from a small university called Trinity College Dublin. I haven't heard that either. And continued berating our President Emeritus, Benjamin Murphy, and then continued to berate Belfast, and then continued to berate Queen's and all it has to offer. He commented that Trinity students knew the answer to common arithmetic, like 26 and 6, and that in true Trinity style, everything was just better over there. Finishing the argument for the opposition was our very own external convener, Mr Hugh Dobbin.
Hey.
His speech started with an emotional plea. His love of Queen's apparently was not from the head, from the heart. It almost felt like he was talking about some old aunt you have to see at Christmas. But he went on to argue that Queen's isn't just about the bougie or the pub, but the great education that you receive. But ultimately, Hugh's true agenda was soon exposed. The real root of his argument was that one should really go to Queen's, as its home of this great society, which was received by much applause and acclamation. Questions were then heard from Miss Cara Campbell, Mr Brian Casey, Mr Kevin Doherty, Aicha Belabbes, I hope that's how you pronounce it.
Oh.
Tell me afterwards.
And it's Doherty, not Doherty.
There we go. A vote was then taken on speaker ability, with 26 votes for the proposition, 33 for the opposition, and 1 abstention. Thus, the motion was rejected. May I take the minutes as read?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. It occurs to me that there are, in fact, other announcements, which I'll blitz through really quickly. Next Wednesday, that is 2 weeks from yesterday, we are going to Stormont.
Wow.
Indeed. So, other than the fact that we'll be debating a motion of, Mr. Secretary, should we announce the motion yet, or should we withhold it to build suspense? Withhold it. Okay then. So, as of yet to be named motion, which is very good and very topical, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some sort of tour of the building and whatnot. But in any event, we need to supply them, as it is a government building and all that, with a full list of everyone who will be attending. We have yet to work out the fine details about transport and things like that. But nevertheless, if you are interested in going, we'll set up a Google form for that as well. One moment, Miss Campbell.
It's about the Stormont trip.
Yes, I will. Before I finish talking about that, I'll come to you. So, yes, that is, we're hoping that will either be free or very, very cheap to members of the society, like £1 or £2, hopefully no more. And to non-members of the society, you can still come, although we will be charging you more than that. You could cut us off at the pass by getting a membership before we close sign-ups for that. But in case I didn't say it already, because frankly I have no idea if I did or not, you have to have your name into it before Friday the 13th. So that's next Friday, just so you know. And just, if you're interested in attending a lovely trip up to Stormont, that is our traditional Freshers Mixer event up there, or speaking at a bit, either talk to us or fill in the form that will be going up soon. Miss Campbell.
Can you inform the House, Mr Black, as to how long the event will take? Because I'm afraid I'm a very busy girl downstairs.
Thank you, Miss Campbell, for keeping me right. We have to be at Stormont for 2 in the afternoon, so we probably have to depart here no later than 1 by whatever methods we're leaving. And so we'll probably be meeting at the Senate room at about 1:45. Order in that corner. But yes, and as to how long it should take, probably the length of an ordinary meeting if there's no tour. I don't think there's a tour because I don't think in previous years we've gotten a tour. But so yes, hopefully it'll be all done by approximately 4:30. But if people would like it to be less than that or longer than that, 1, they can leave at any time, and 2, we could look into extending it somehow if you just never want to leave Stormont. But yeah. So other than that, also just worth pointing out that we record the audio of these debates. That is a thing that happens. Speakers generally are aware of this and have kind of implicitly agreed to be recorded. Speakers from the floor, you can ask to be removed if you want, but again, it goes up online. It's listened to by like 100 people, so it's just like an archival thing really for us that we like to do. So I would hope that no one would object, but the option's there. Otherwise, once again, something has gone into my head and gone out again. But we will move on to private members' business for now. So this is a fun part of the evening for any member of the Johns. All I have to say to that, Mr. MacDonald, is satire. So yes, before we were rudely interrupted, we were just about to move on to private members' business. So at this point of the meeting, anyone from the floor can raise their hand and I will point to you, and then you can ask a question to the House, to the speakers, to anyone other than me, if that comes in a moment. So Miss Campbell, I see you have your hand raised.
Okay, so last week I might have seemed a little distracted on my phone, and while I wasn't Snapchatting, I was receiving a message from someone about a motion they wanted to put to the House.
Oh.
Yes, and they can't be here in person because They're on a ship somewhere off the coast of Ghana, I believe.
You've killed them, haven't you? That's your excuse.
Yes, I went there and I killed them. Don't go with that. Edit that out, Bradley.
You know what happens if you want something removed. I am completely at liberty to record what you said, but in the voice of the actor Matt Berry. So if you want that, I can do it.
Yes. Anyway, Miss Campbell.
So the motion I had for the House is, it's quite long. He's not a debater, so it's not short and snappy. But I don't have any context for this whatsoever. So I can't provide any context.
Hit us with it.
Should Greenpeace be prosecuted as pirates and labelled a criminal organisation for the illegal boarding of a merchant vessel at sea, theft, and the obstruction of the right of innocent passage for merchant vessel upon the sea?
That is a fascinating and verbose question, Miss Campbell. Does anybody have an opinion? Anyone? Mr. Sullivan?
I mean, I don't really like ruining the environment. I'm pretty green, but Greenpeace attack ships. They're not good people. Yeah, no, they're pirates.
Well said, Mr. Sullivan. Someone clearly agrees with me. You, good sir.
Propose shortening the title, just here should these boys be allowed to nick ships.
Excellent. Yes, that would be much better. Miss Belabbes.
I oppose. So like in the US we have the show like on this channel called Animal Planet where you see like activists who like stop Japanese ships like trying to kill whales, and even though whales are not as endangered as they were because they're not hunted for their blubber anymore, you know, they're still pretty fragile. And I do think that a lot of the fishing industry has such a negative effect because Greenpeace usually they do this for like fishing ships, and we've really lost a lot of fish, and there are a lot of endangered species of fish around the world. And so I do think that it's important activist work. Yes, they may be pirates and it might not be by law, and they are breaking the law, but I do believe that it's the right thing to do because of the shape that the ocean ecosystem is in today.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Neill?
Yes. I would just like to add that if Greenpeace are actively involved in piracy, where can I sign up?
That's the start. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Hickman.
As much as I appreciate the honourable member's opinion when it comes to the sentiments and the good intentions of such an organisation, but frankly, if we are going to make this change, this has to be done through legislation, by international accords, by conventions. These are not things that a extrajudicial, wayward group of individuals can attack ships, can cause absolute chaos on the seas. We have to have this regulated in some way, and unfortunately, by doing just a rampant free reign of an organisation is not the solution.
Here.
Here.
It may provide some insight into Mr. Hickman's response there if I had properly introduced him as Mr. Hickman, student of law and secretary of the QB Law Society. Might have been a sudden there, yes, Mr. Thornton.
Hello. If we were to go on this Greenpeace thing, then I am just going to go down to my local Tesco and nick a can of beer or whatever, because that's basically what they're doing. They're just go in and do what they like.
So there be no such thing as Thornton. You shall not impugn the good name of the society, Emma. I urge you to not do so. Mr. Dolan seems you've already spoken.
Yeah.
And we'll take one more point.
Oh, I was on a different point. This isn't about Greenpeace.
Well, then take your seat, Mr. Dolan. If anyone has any one last point on the Greenpeace issue, we shall go with a new fellow down there.
Hi, John Murray's. If we do not sort of, tell off Greenpeace for what they're doing, which is essentially piracy and one could consider terrorism, what's to stop other groups that may use the term, we're Greenpeace, to go and attack other ships? Some of these guys have done.
A very fair point. I believe that was technically a motion that was put to the House. So,
He's going to be very happy, don't worry.
Okay, so then we shall proceed to a vote. Can you give us a concise version of it?
Oh,
You don't need to read out the whole thing.
Oh, wait.
Greenpeace good, Greenpeace bad.
No, I have an idea. Should Greenpeace be prosecuted as pirates?
There we go. So, all those in favour of prosecuting Greenpeace as pirates, please raise your hands and say aye. Aye. People raised. 32,
32 is exactly.
Yeah, very good. And all those against prosecuting Greenpeace as pirates, please raise your hand and say nay.
Yard.
1, 2, 4, 5,
Looking for the One Piece.
8, 9, 10, 11, I think. Right, 11, sir. And all those who have no opinion on the motion, who would like to abstain, please raise your hands and say meh.
Meh.
Should be.
That's 10. I'm 10. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Conn, please inform me, did that motion pass, fail, or
The motion passed by 32 votes.
Very good. So they should be prosecuted according to the infinite wisdom of this House. Does anybody have, we'll take just one more piece of private member's business. Mr Edmund.
On a serious note, will this House condemn the brutal and ruthless murder of the elf on the shelf meme by people who can't mean?
Only the most serious of matters from you, Mr. Murray. Does anybody have any opinion on this most cutting image of our time? Yes, Mr. Clark.
I mean, it wasn't really murdered, it was just terrible.
Anyone else have an opinion on that? Mr. Bradley, take officer.
To quote the Ninth Doctor, everything has its time and everything dies. Every meme has got a lifespan, and no matter how dreadful that meme is, we all know that it will die one day. I've really kept the spirits up here.
Yeah.
Mentioning death again. There we go.
Mr. Bradley, I'm going to pretend that I did not just see you dab. Heaven knows what actions I would be forced to commit if I had seen that, but thankfully I did not. Okay then, in that case, I believe we shall move on to the President's questions. This is a fun part of the evening as well, when you can ask me things, and this Campbell, I swear...
It's not the question.
Oh, good. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
It's not the question you think it is.
I know, but I'll save it then, just because I'm thinking Mr. Solomon will ask the question.
He always does.
Normally I could be bothered to make up some big fake out spiel, and I dress this question up, but I'm tired, so I'm just going to ask, what do you have for breakfast?
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. I appreciate your honesty. Although I do feel as though you've subverted it somewhat by making your non-fake out the fake out. I see your game. I had for breakfast this morning the same that I had last week, a glass of cranberry juice, bullshitties with soy milk. Terribly boring, I'm afraid. Mr. Campbell, hopefully a more interesting question, more original one.
This is what I wanted to ask last week when Ben was in the room. So it's a question I asked him during his time as president,
Okay.
and I feel it's very compelling, especially using Ben is sick with the flu. So I wonder what this will say about you next year. But Mr. President, do you consider your eating habits to be healthy?
Oh, good heavens, no. That said, I wouldn't consider them to be actively unhealthy. I don't eat a lot of fast food. I don't really eat any fast food. I just don't really eat, which is a bit of a problem, admittedly. But I mean, it could be worse.
Are you anorexic?
Pardon? That's a very personal question, Ms. Campbell. That appears to have taken more people by offence than I don't really care, but I suppose it's not the kind of thing you should ask, so don't do that, Ms. Campbell. There's lots over here now. Ms. Ferrari.
Okay, Mr. President, as an international student, can you explain me what is all this concern about your eating habits? Breakfast, dinner? Explain this to me because I don't get it.
This is a bad joke. Yes. I would honestly, because I could barely fathom the answer myself. Something to do with, in jokes and things that won't die. So anyone can vote in this one. this is a vote on prior opinions. So this is quite simple. All you do is aye, nay, or abstain on the motion. So, if a binding vote were held right now on the motion of this House believes Islam is compatible with Western liberalism, and you were to vote in support of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise, keep them up so we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 31. I've got 32.
It's got 31, so go.
All those who would vote against the motion, please raise your hand and say nay.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Was your hand up there, miss?
Yeah.
And all those who have no opinion, who do not know, who wish to abstain, who wish to express no opinion whatsoever, please raise your hand and say meh.
Meh.
Keep it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, Mr. Secretary.
13. Bugger.
Okay, so I would now, any chance you have for me, Mr. Secretary, what I asked you to prepare earlier? No? Okay, that's fine. Well, in that case, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the floor now our guest speaker for this evening. Our guest speaker is very well versed in this area, and in case you can't tell, I'm vamping because I forgot my cheat sheet. So hopefully, and I apologise, good sir, he will give himself a proper introduction to you all. So all that remains for me to say is I urge you to welcome to the floor our guest chair, Dr Livingstone Thompson. Very good.
When I completed my PhD, one of the things that I was concerned to understand was whether there can be a conversation between Islam and Christianity. And my first publication actually had to do with this very topic, a conversation with Islam, and what formula for conversation that might have. So I'm particularly interested in this field, and I'm also very happy and privileged to be able to be here with you this evening to consider this topic. Debates in general are fraught with, what may say, difficulties, due in large measure to the fact that often, when terms are used, the contending parties do not understand them in the same way. And yet some might say that that is the point of debate, because people will always understand things differently. However, there is no charm in absurdity, and it will be a complete waste of time to find at the end of the debate that we are contending over terminologies, or simply splitting hair. It behoves the parties in tonight's debate then to satisfy us that this is not simply a terminology fashion show. And yet, given the mood, the issue of terminology is not insignificant. It's important that those who propose the mood and those who oppose do not fall into the classic error of assuming that Islam refers to a homogeneous religious community. There are different kinds of thinking within Islamic communities worldwide, and the perception that of what is essential in Islam varies from place to place, or even from epoch to epoch. The same is true of liberalism. Liberalism in the so-called West. So thinkers like Locke and Voltaire and Rousseau, Hume and Adam Smith, to name a few of who have made contribution to what may be regarded as the liberal project, did not all say the same thing. For this reason, we can speak of classical liberalism, we can speak of neoliberalism, for example. And if we think about continental Europe, when compared with, say, the United States of America, we find that there are different emphases. In brief, then, without being pedantic, the contributors must ensure that we are not lost about which Islam are we talking about, and which liberalism are we really referring to. With that, then, I will invite then the speakers to get their positions ready. I do not have the names here, so if I might be helped, Mr. President.
Yes, certainly. The well-oiled machine here. Good.
Well, I do not need to recite for you the usual rules relating to our debate, but the ones that I believe especially is of virtue is respecting the first and the last minute of the speaker's contribution, so that and give them the discretion within those 5 minutes whether or not they will take your question. So the first then to speak for the proposition. This House believes Islam is compatible with Western liberalism. Ms. Belabbes.
So I will start off with a sort of funny note. Calvin, I feel bad that you've only had shreddies today, and I wish you could experience breakfast in the US. So I think it's really important for me to introduce myself before I begin with this debate. My full name is Aicha Belabbes. I consider myself to be biracial. I'm half white, half North African. I'm Muslim. I'm a study abroad student from the United States. And I consider myself to be very, very Western and very, very Muslim. So here you go. So the two terms, I wasn't planning on saying this, but because the intro speaker brought it up, so the two most terms that are deeply misunderstood are jihad and sharia. Sharia just means Islamic law. It's just like, it's very basic. It's like theological law. It's like it's the reason why I don't eat pork or drink alcohol. It's not like any oppressive down. And jihad is the same word as crusade. It means the exact same thing. It's the literal translation. And it means internal struggle, and it can mean internal struggle like quitting smoking or not swearing or something like that. So I just want to begin saying that I was very frustrated with this idea that Islam and the West are two totally different things, because I'm those things combined. So I'm really, because this idea that, Islam is compatible with Western liberalism already sets up the paradigm of the East and West. So this whole thing is about destroying that. So things that we believe to be the core aspects of Western liberalism, like feminism and social freedoms, are actually not Western, and in fact existed long before Western feminism and social freedoms existed in the US. In the Quran, it says that men and women are equal, and in the Muslim world, in the ancient Muslim world, which spanned from Spain to China, women had property rights, rights to marry who they chose, and rights over their body long before Western women did. In some places in the West, women still don't have these rights, and they did long before. In Islam, women have the right to choose abortion, because the fetus is not considered a person in Islam until having a soul, which is 120 days, and it mandates that a woman must get an abortion if her life is at risk, which is better than Ireland these days, meaning that Islam sees the woman as more valuable than the fetus that she's holding. The Quran says religion is not compulsory, which is a deep belief of secularism and social freedoms. Many of the tenets that we consider to be Western were actually part of Islam long before these values existed in the West. I'm a Muslim, and I'm also a deep believer of liberalism, social freedoms, and socialism. You can give me any issue, and I can tell you that it is compatible. You'll probably be a little shocked with this one, but yes, LGBTQ rights are a part of Islam. The Quran mandates no punishment on same-sex relationships, unlike Christianity. And interpretations of bans of homosexuality can be understood to not be about sodomy, but actually about rape, sexual assault. Yes?
So are you saying whenever Allah came to Muhammad that he was talking about LGBT rights, because you said it was in there, but
it wasn't a thing until maybe the last 50 years.
So in the Quran, there is no punishment on same-sex relationships. And in the communities, when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was first preaching to people, asking them to become Muslim, one of the groups that he actually preached was were people from the LGBTQ community to join. So, yeah. And societies were far more open than a lot of societies in the West at that time. If you look at Andalusia, can I finish first? In Andalusia, in ancient Spain, which spanned about 900 years, Muslims, Jews, and Christians lived in relatively peace and harmony. And intellectualism, scientific advancements flourished at this time. Islam even believes in rights for sex workers. It actually says that prostitutes should not be harmed or punished, and that if someone does not want to be a prostitute, that there should be resources in the society to help them get out of that. I see no contradictions between my liberal and socialist beliefs and my religion. In fact, I believe that my religion supports my activist work, and my activist work supports my religion. Point. Yes?
I'm really interested in hearing about your experiences, and I think
I'm getting into that.
evidence is really good. But would you say you're representative of a majority of the people who are like you?
So the thing is that Islam used to be a very liberal, if you look at the Muslim world spanning from China to Spain in the ancient Muslim world, it was a very open and tolerant and accepting world of different religions. Even the Ottoman Empire, there was LGBTQ literature and poetry, and people who wrote that were not shunned. What happened was colonialism destroyed a lot of openness and acceptance, and so a lot of the advancements that happened in the Muslim world have unfortunately been destroyed. And so it's up to people like me who I'm actually very privileged when you look at many Muslims around the world, because I have the opportunity and education. And so the thing is that you cannot compare me to 1 billion people, because I'm much more privileged than the 1.5 billion people who are Muslim. But I do feel a big weight on my shoulders to educate people who are Muslim, people who aren't Muslim, to accept these values. In the US, I've worked and campaigned with mosques, political campaigns, social justice campaigns. I've done work in the LGBTQ community. Am I done? Is that 7 minutes? No.
Point of order to myself. Apparently, roughly how much time would you think you have left?
Like a minute.
Minute. Would the House like to offer her an extra minute?
Yes.
Can I get a seconder? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, say nay. Okay, Ms. Belabbes, you have a further minute, please.
Alright. So, I've worked on many issues that are considered to be Western, and never once did I feel like I was going against my religion or my personal beliefs. I grew up as a Muslim in the most liberal cities in the country, Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is where Harvard and MIT reside. Massachusetts was the first state to pass same-sex marriage. It's very liberal. And we were the first city, one of the first cities to have Eid as a city holiday and have a city councilor as a Muslim. And in my opinion, Islam in America flourishes in the most liberal places. Finally, Western liberalism would not exist without many of the advancements that took place in the Muslim world, because the foundation of Western liberalism is the Renaissance. That's what a lot of people say, it's the Renaissance. And the Renaissance would not have happened because the Greeks like Archimedes and their work would have been lost, except Muslims translated into Arabic, which then was translated into Italian, French, and all these other different languages. And also the first university in the world was created by a Moroccan princess in Morocco. So Queens would not exist without the university in Morocco. I rest my case.
Ms Belabbes for her speech. Give her another applause. And now Mr Edmund Doherty for the opposition.
I would like to begin my speech by giving you a statistic I found from the Huffington Post, published on the 30th of August 2017. This is taken from a survey by Hope Not Hate, a British charity that specialises in promoting peace within the UK. They found that in a survey, over 50% of the British people that took part in it believe that Islam poses a threat to the West. What this shows is the idea that Islam is not compatible with Western liberalism is not something only a small minority believe in, is actually something that is spreading across the country and across many different people. As such, I would like to start off by showing you some of the laws that exist in majority Muslim countries, including Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam. So, in Saudi Arabia...
Points up.
Yes.
Would you be knowing when Islam was born? 610. Would you be knowing when Saudi Arabia was born?
Okay, in what is now referred to as in what is now referred to.
You're more than a millennia of just pointing that out.
Anyway, so on the 3rd of October 2017, an article was published in The Independent which stated that there have already been 100 executions in the country of Saudi Arabia. Alongside this, in Tunisia, which has Islam as its state religion, the inheritance law states that a daughter is only entitled to half of what the son would receive upon the death of a father.
On that point, sir?
Yes.
Would you be knowing the fact that Islam was in fact one of the first religion to actually give a woman any rights to inheritance?
Yes, but how does that change what is currently going on in modern times in majority Muslim countries where the inheritance law is far more unequal than it is in the West?
On that point.
No bargaining, sorry. No
bargaining.
You need to give them a minute or two or a couple of seconds to keep going.
Alongside that, I would also like to point out that the difficulty between Western liberalism and Islam is actually already occurred. A week ago, the London School of Economics was actually ruled in a court case to have done something unlawful. What? Well, it was the fact that the Islamic Society gala dinner had the different genders segregated by a curtain, which is unlawful because it goes against most of the gender rules that we've established in this country over the last 100 or so years.
That's not actually like from the religion. That's a cultural thing that has been influenced by
It is the Society of the Religion of Islam within this university.
Go back and forth. I'm sorry, I shouldn't let him answer.
Alongside this, I would also like to speak about Muslim leaders and Muslims' opinions on this idea of compatibility or incompatibility. Influential Indonesian Muslim leader Yahya Khalil Stakuf, yes.
I'm loving your speech so far, but it feels like you're cherry picking examples. Like you're just picking out examples that you want to prove your idea, but it's just not working.
I'd like to think I was making points, but... I shall more clearly state that my current point is the idea that even Muslims themselves have actually denounced the idea of Islam working within a Western liberal society. I'm not going to repeat his name because it's a very difficult one, but I'll say it again. Influential Indonesian Muslim leader Yahya Khalil Stakuf stated that there is a clear relationship between terrorism and Orthodox Islam, which I have found is actually
On that point,
collaborated, I should say. Yes.
how can you relate that the formal Islam has something to do with ISIS, that I think that's the terrorist group that you're talking about?
Because we don't see terrorism as a good thing in the West, personally.
Speak for yourself.
Alongside this, I found that actually an English person has stated it. Ms Aicha was actually a former Islamist and also a former parliamentary candidate for the Liberal Democrats in the 2015 general election, said that there is a connection between Islam and terrorism. This was in relation to his show on LBC, which I don't listen to that station, but, you know.
On that point,
Yes?
with the same argument that you're talking about, I could be saying right now that that the Irish people have something to do with the RRA, because it was it was the same following argument that you're telling us about, that Islam is directly beyond or behind the ISIS. We could say the same thing, didn't we?
Okay, I shall make a statement on that actually. In any religion, political party, anything like that, you will always have moderates. However, you will also then always have extremists. How do you think Jeremy Corbyn started as an MP? In the same case, Islam has extremists. This is not something that we can merely just ignore and deny. As such, I would like to speak to you about the Islamic calendar.
On that point, sir?
No.
Check time.
So, last year was 2016. When the Islamic calendar, it was 1437. And I'd like to show you an example from what happened in 1437 in the Gregorian calendar. In 1437 AD, James I of Scotland basically stabbed.
I really don't want to make a habit of this, but could you finish your speech in one more minute?
Yes.
Would the House like to give another minute?
Yeah.
One more minute. He did take a lot of questions, so it seems fair. Just quickly, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say nay. Okay, go ahead. You have one more minute. Please finish within that time.
What that shows is that our culture has changed. Has Islam's yet? To finish, I would like to give you a quote of my own. In the liberal society, if someone identified themselves as a woman, liberals wouldn't stop that person's identification, would they? So why is it that whenever there's a terrorist who happens to be Islamic, they ignore the fact that he is Muslim?
Now that was Mr Doherty's maiden speech, so I think he deserves another. Noted that Ms Belabbes also made her maiden speech, so in retrospect, an applause for her because of now Mr Fionnbharr Rodgers, the second speaker for the proposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Firstly, Mr Doherty, just because an idea is widespread does not make it true. 50% of the British people also chose to commit economic suicide last summer. Settle down. And I don't believe that referendum result was in keeping with traditional liberal values. And that moves me nicely to this point. Actually, no, hang on, I'll come later. No, sorry. Got ahead of myself. When we're talking about Islam, for the last 7 minutes we seem to be thinking about some sort of monolithic thing, which it very much isn't. Speaking as someone who's raised Catholic, I have a lot more in common with liberal Muslims than I do with, say, for instance, the Free Presbyterian Church, or even the traditionalist wing of the Catholic Church. The Abrahamic religions are a vast spectrum which have, over the last millennia, at various points, in various ways, stolen and borrowed and stolen from each other. And then Vivian's point is quite a bit earlier, but then I changed my mind. Who are we to judge who adheres to the values of Western liberals when Western liberalism when we have never done that ourselves to any meaningful degree. We have on paper, but we've been more than willing over the last few centuries to cast those principles aside when practicality got in the way. The earliest example would be the early example, that of ancient Greece and the very foundings of democracy, where democracy was restricted to only those people who would be eligible for membership of the Culture Club in 1927. And ancient Athenians also kept slaves. Yes, they recognised this was wrong, but in the same time, who's going to pick up our stuff? So it's an example of practicality getting in the way. And between then and now, we have, in the last century, seen power struggles for states which have... democracy and liberalism has never been an easy ride. It has always been thoroughly resisted at every single turn. The best example would be the United States, which, as Christianity has always had the tradition of burning heretics, the United States has kept this alive by US Army chaplains blessing US bombs and soldiers as they are sent out to other countries.
Here, here.
The US like to think themselves as the greatest democracy in the world, but in any real terms, they've only really been a democracy for about 50 years. The Declaration of Independence, yes, declared that all men are created equal, and funny enough, it was the first time anyone had ever fought to write that down. But the Constitution then went about creating a long list of addendums of what a man actually was. Women then wouldn't get a look in for until about 1920. And then moving closer to home, we have Europe, starting in Britain, which has messaging himself as being the mother of all parliaments and having a quite a civilised approach to empire.
Point.
No, go away. However, again, they've always been willing to offer what is practical. We saw that in 1971 with Operation Demetrius. We again are seeing that now with calls for the introduction of internments. In the face of Muslim extremism. Go ahead.
Are all of these going to be historical relativism points, or are we ever going to actually get to the ideology at hand?
Not really. I'm a historian, this is what I do. When we're thinking about Europe, what do you think both adhere to the values of liberalism and also was more stable? Iran under the Shah or the Weimar Republic in the Second Spanish Republic, considering how the three of those ended.
So on that point,
yes?
what do you want to mean about that? Spanish, I mean, what's engagement in there?
Well, it's about 10 years of liberalism and democracy, and then completely fell apart. We're bound back to fascism.
Point. No, sorry, no.
I thought I had more than
That's a fine, Mr. Rodgers.
I just finished. So
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you, Mr. Rodgers.
Fine, Mr. Rodgers, that wasn't your maiden speech, was it? No. Yeah, okay. Very well. Give him a hand anyway. I regret this is not a representation of democracy, so I can hand over some of your time to somebody else. Mr. Conn or Neill for the opposition, 7 minutes.
Esteemed guest, ladies, gentlemen, comrades, my time here will be spent largely over two areas that I believe this debate fits into, which are that of the direct teaching of Islam and its effective indirect outcomes. Never at any stage should we absolve one of these two from the responsibility that it's had in today's society. They must both be examined and unified to give the necessary analysis that this debate deserves. I will also focus on the actual notion, the term compatible, and how that means through the dictionary, able to exist or occur together without problems or conflict. The beautiful thing about this notion is how specific it is, in that it looks at Western Liberalism, meaning a school of philosophical thought that began during the Enlightenment and that has driven political ideology west of Germany since its inception. It's important to always keep in mind, as this argument progresses, the pillars not of Islam, but of liberalism in the West. The idea of democracy, the idea of freedom of press and of thought and of speech, the idea of religious freedom and religious tolerance to all religions, the idea of secularism, meaning religion out of politics, the idea of gender equality and of the rule of law as decided by our elected officials. The reason it is the most dangerous of all the major religions is that it makes the assertion that it is the last and final truth to be spoken by God. This immediately is a temptation to violence and intolerance, the fact that it is the last. And if you note, it's a temptation that they are quite willing to indulge in.
On that point, do you not think that's a bit of a leap?
Is it?
In logic, yeah.
Well, look what's happening in society, look what's happening.
Yeah, but to say...
Go back. Okay, with regard to events, look what's happening, I think it's to say that the indulging it is pretty fair. I am quite tired of the privileged positions and the looking back on the good old days of Islam. Look at what the religion is now and in its current form. For example, if I was talking in the 1930s, I would definitely say that the Catholic Church was the most dangerous religion in the world, and its open alliance with fascism and Nazism, and how they will never be able to recover from that in that thing. The ultimate aim of Islam, as seen in the scriptures, is to end up with Sharia, that is the religious law rather than our civil law. And in ways I could nearly just drop the mic and be done with this speech. Because Sharia and our civil laws are about as compatible as oil and water. And this is the crux that Islam should be rejected on and should be ridiculed and ousted from our society if we wish to remain a liberal, free country.
On that point.
No, thank you. The first speaker said that Sharia wasn't oppressive, but what if it was implemented here? So for the people who don't indulge in the Islamic faith, I will be prosecuted on the religious law.
On that point, if you are not Muslim, you are not objected to Sharia law. That's like a really big point. And the thing is that a lot of these so-called oppressive governments were actually put in by the US. And they were not chosen by the people.
Here.
I'm never going to defend the US or the British Empire for that regard, so I won't wait. With regard to Islam, I don't really waste time in terms of getting into the ideology that an angel came to an illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and speaking Arabic to him, the illiterate man somehow wrote all this down into scripture for everyone to read. I'm not going to waste my time with it, and I don't think that I'm being harsh on Islam. I'll be harsh on all religions, and I think they're all equally nonsensical and ludicrous, and we should reject them. However, Islam is by far the greatest threat facing our way of life in the West, and we should fight against it while we still can. The religion is unashamedly intolerant to promiscuity, to alcohol, homosexuality, adultery, to all the religions, things that are tolerated in our society. And I will bring back the idea of compatibility. Is this compatible in the West? Are these our values? Let's have a look at how Islam in the world has fared out so far, in the states that have adopted it. For good or bad, the human rights abuses, gay people are stoned, women are raped without repercussion for certain garments that they did or did not wear, women can't vote, they can't drive, Wahhabism and jihad is peddled by rich oil oligarchs in the Gulf, and it is exported then to our societies. That is what's happening now in its current form. And let's not forget the most recent religious genocide in the Middle East that saw a Sunni militant group attempt to create a caliphate whilst murdering, maiming and raping their way through the origins of civilization. If we wish for these things, well, we should look to this religion to instill it in our own democracy. In what way are these real world outcomes compatible with the ideals of our Western liberalism?
On that point.
Yes, I would think.
I get the sense that what you're saying is that brutal, heavily extremist theocracies are incompatible with Western liberalism, not necessarily Islam. I mean, you could say all these things about, the Pope ruled all of Europe.
And
also the Pope was a giant fascist guy.
I absolutely agree, and I'll refer back to the idea Dan Hammond in one of the Oxford debates. He's a conservative MP, I think, I'm just answering something else. He basically, whenever it was socialism against capitalism, but he was basically saying, look at the necessary outcomes. And so look at what Islam has currently done to the world. So in its absolute... I'm still answering. So in that case, I think you also have to look at the necessary outcomes of what has happened. Also, with regard to the Ottomans and stuff, these societies flourished because they allowed freedom of religion. They actually embraced liberalism in its pure sense. They abandoned ideas of a theocracy at times during the empire, and that's how they flourished. And that is essentially what this is. It's a battle of ideologies. It's democracy against theocracy. And you can choose which one you wish.
On that point.
I'm in my minute on it.
Sorry. Yes.
To conclude,
like chairs on my
shame design. To conclude, the apologists for this religion will be the ones who open the door to gates of this barbarous ideology to take over. The people of tolerance, of multiculturalism and kindness in their hearts will effectively be the people who will tie the noose from which we will all hang. It is here that our society shall fall if we appease these irrational and dangerous thoughts. A hero of mine, Christopher Hitchens, predicted the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in the West even before the 9/11 attacks were here, because in his head it was clear the danger that it posed. Indeed, my being here making this speech would have me in front of a Sharia court if I lived in Saudi Arabia in 2017. So we must look at the motion and say, is it compatible? Does it exist in our liberal societies without problems or without conflict? I hope over these last few minutes I've shown you that it cannot, and therefore I beseech you to reject the motion. Thank you.
I'd just like to briefly point out a couple of things. First of all, when someone has been asked a point of information, they can decline it. They don't have to take it at all. They can decline 100 or they can decline 1, whatever. If they do take it, when they're answering that question, you can't ask another one during their answer. And once they've started back on their speech, let them get through at least 2 sentences before asking another question. They put a lot of time and effort into writing their speeches for tonight, so it's a little respecting. Also, anytime I do something stupid, which is going to be frequently throughout this year, please shout shame, resign at me. It's the only way to stop me. Yes. Anyway, apologies for that. So,
thank you, Mr. President. Yes, you have the right to be.
These chairs are awful.
That is probably more the quotes as well.
Yeah.
Where's the quote rap? So, well, thank you, Mr. President. We want. So, can we have another hand for Mr. O'Neill? For the proposition. Yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not used to the style of debating, so I'm just going to keep it simple. Listen with the ears of tolerance. See through the eyes of compassion. Speak in the language of love. This little quote by Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, the scholar of Islam, by the way, was written way back in the 13th century, and I think it proves just how liberal, and that liberal ideas, liberal concepts were not only present, but prevalent in medieval Islamic societies. But to give you a little bit of perspective, at a time when a man in Europe was sentenced to long years in prison for, and I quote, commonly leaving the city with arms and a greyhound at the time of Vespers and returning in the morning, the Islamic world was gathering scholars from diverse cultural backgrounds to meet and translate all of the world's ancient knowledge and classical literature into one common language for the common people of the time. There's the compatibility. Before I move on, I'd like to point out that Mr. O'Neill defined the word compatibility, but very conveniently left out the meaning of liberalism, which in fact means that we need to exist together in spite of the conflict. So let's move on to addressing the elephant in the room, violence in Islam, radical Islamic terrorism. The opposition walks in here with cherry-picked usual polemics, incidents out of context, trying to make us believe that Islam is in fact incompatible with the ideologies of the West, but what they have failed to prove tonight is that there is something fundamentally flawed with the very tenets of Islam that prevents it from evolving with the culture that it embraces or with the times in which it is practiced. They fail to prove it. Islam, however, is compatible with violence, but that doesn't mean it is identical to violence. And I say that because Islam does permit the use of violence in certain limited contexts, but out of all the references to violence in the Quran, the ones that do promote war are followed by excitations saying, and I quote, "Taking the peaceful option is always better, and in accordance with the will of God." And even in the Islamic injunctions pertaining to war, all of them fall well within the concept, the Western concept, of the just war theory. But to be fair to the opposition, because I realize that when one is opposing a motion as controversial and as volatile as this one, any negative statement can be viewed as intolerant or right-wing. But the fact is that they're still here, standing up here and saying what they have to say, oblivious to the fact that if Islam was in fact incompatible with Western concepts, a group of extremists would be barging into this room, screaming the name of Allah. But we're all still here.
Don't write that out, it's not out.
On that point.
We're all still here, sitting, debating, urging the House to view Islam the way a majority, an overwhelming majority of Muslims in this world do, as a religion of justice, liberty, and love.
On that point.
A religion just like yours, as compatible with the modern world as yours.
On that point.
You've already experienced and heard this lovely lady here talking about women in Islam, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but I would like to mention that marriage in Islam is in fact by way of legal contract, a contract that is upheld in a court of law instead of a religious one. There's the compatibility with modern ideas. But another tenet of Islam that people consider to be in stark contrast with Western ideologies is freedom of speech, expression, conscience. Well, believe it or not, suppression, repression are actually forbidden in the Quran. So I implore you not to judge a 1500-year-old text. A text that has stood at the forefront of the world's second largest religion, based on articles from newspapers that were printed yesterday.
On that point.
Within the Quran, in fact, there is no text that forbids freedom of expression or suppresses it by any means. On the contrary, the Quran encourages people to discuss matters openly, protest, accept or reject ideas, and bring about all the evidences that might be available to contest Islamic teachings.
On that point.
The Quran puts no restrictions on the freedom of expression to the extent that even the devil is allowed to speak openly.
I'd be curious to hear your views.
Stand up.
I'd be curious to hear your views on blasphemy laws if you're trying to build the idea of freedom of expression under Islam.
I'll get to it. Please sit down.
I already addressed that in my speech as well.
It's also noteworthy that Islam does not speak of apostasy laws either, even though it does refer to apostasy. But at none of these places does it prescribe any human punishment for abandoning faith. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is that the central message of Islam is justice, peace, and it instills in the individuals the essential qualities for coexistence, peaceful coexistence. The opposition, the fanatics, the so-called radicals, anti-social elements can believe in Islam's incompatibility all they like, but it is up to all of you to not confuse the teachings of a religion with the history of the region in which it is practiced. So take a second and think about the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda. Think about the KKK in the USA, or the massacre of Muslims by the hands of the Buddhists in Myanmar, or in fact, right-wing political parties in India, or the Naxalites in India, or even the Las Vegas shootings. Was it their religion? Or are these people themselves incompatible with modern liberal ideologies. All around the world and in all religions, people.
Oh, do you want another minute? Is that what you're asking for? A couple of seconds? Because it's seconds, I'll let you go, but.
A minute.
Folks, all in favour of giving him another minute? Aye. Those against, say nay.
Nay.
I think the ayes have it. 1 minute, sir. But please.
People seem to hijack the name of their religion for their own violent, malignant purposes. And be it the Crusades in Christianity, or the Mahabharata in Hinduism, or the ongoing issue of terrorism in Islam, history is testimony to the fact that at some point in time, a group of selfish, savage, bigots will be forced to use their religion to hide their greed. But for every one of those bigots, there will be millions of peaceful, law-abiding citizens of every country in the world that consider that religion a source of their identity. So, ladies and gentlemen, when this motion is put up to vote tonight, if you do happen to favor the opposition, if you do happen to vote against this motion, ask yourselves, do you really believe that I, or this lady here, or the other Muslims in this room, or in this university, the girl that sits next to you in your lecture, or even that woman who sells flowers and magazines outside the university every morning, none of us deserve to live in a diverse, social, multicultural, modern, liberal society, not because of our cheap character or flawed mindsets or sick personalities, but simply because of our religion. Do you really think that? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Aliwata was also making his maiden speech, so he does deserve another applause. Now, the final speaker on the vote, we have Mr. Conor MacNamara for the opposition.
Probably won't deal with it properly yet. I think it's crucial that we divorce this debate from the knee-jerk reaction of people, which is to denounce one side as bigots or one side as extremists and all that, and try and focus instead on the clashing ideologies here. To go and examine some of the proposition's first points, it's an early point that was made on the definition of jihad, which was that it was just a struggle. You're half right, it's a struggle with the addendum that it's a struggle against the enemies of Islam. So it's not like quitting smoking, it's more like waging war against apostasy. My main, my central point here, central note of my argument is going to be focused on what we see tonight, which is obscurantism. It's very easy to condemn all examples of terrorism as not representative of the underlying ideology. Similarly, it's very easy to condemn Western liberalism for its historical drawbacks, but that's just not the reality. What we're seeing nowadays, as was said about modern Middle Eastern states and Middle Eastern governments, that they are either put there as a result of US foreign policy or have no connection to the underlying ideology, just isn't the case. What we're seeing at the moment is a spiritual ideology existing which views its aims in zero-sum means and which are irreconcilable with the system that we've established here in the West. There's no room for creative interpretation in Islam. God's view on slavery and apostasy are clear. Had he wanted them otherwise, he would have written them differently.
Do I have a point?
No. The choice here is whether the followers of the faith the choice here is whether the followers of Islam view themselves in terms of their actual day-to-day lives, or whether they view themselves as followers of the faith. There is a difference here in terms of a jihadist or an Islamist. The political subsect of Islam is just simply not going to be reconcilable with Western liberalism. The Quran, for example, I'm going to go off actually, no use me. The Quran isn't just a spiritual guidebook, it's also a political textbook.
On that
point? Sure.
Isn't the Bible as well?
No, the Bible does contain certain laws, like canon law and all that, and I'm trying not to get into a back and forth about talking about Christianity. We can back and forth over spiritual texts. But my main point is that, say, for example, the Bible, you can have extremist interpretations of it, but the Quran is viewed as the literal word of God. There is no creative room
On
here
that
for
point,
interpretation.
On that point.
No, he's answering a question.
So you can be a follower of Islam, you can be a Muslim, but if you just follow the text to the letter and take it in all of its entire encompassance, you automatically end up in a position where you physically cannot abide by certain things which Western liberalism. The kind of the failure of this debate has been that we haven't really addressed, and I'm kind of at a shortness of breath now to try and wrap it all into the little time I have. We have not addressed the ideas of blasphemy, apostasy, jihad, takfirism, Jazeera, your Islamic law and all that. We haven't dealt with these yet. What we've done so far is to cherry pick historical and moral examples and point fingers at each other. The reality is that the actions of terrorists are emblematic of the underlying ideology. We're committing a no true Scotsman fallacy by saying that the actions of the Wahhabists in Saudi Arabia or ISIS or any modern day terror cell is not representative of an underlying ideology. Baghdadi, for example, is an Islamic scholar. To say that the actions of ISIS aren't an example of Islamic law being carried out to the letter. Sure.
So, do you think it's reasonable to say that because... All right. Do you think it's reasonable to say that because there is a heavily extremist subset of Islam, that it is representative of the entirety of the religion in all of its forms?
Yeah, this is a really interesting point. Most followers of Islam, of course, aren't represented by ISIS. But that's not the issue here. We're trying to tackle the underlying ideology. ISIS and terror groups and your extremists, your Wahhabists, your general political Islamists are an accurate representation of that ideology. They've just carried it out further. They've taken on both the political and the religious elements. 99% of Muslims don't. They're passively carrying out the religion like everybody else. And as was made clear, they can exist in a multicultural and ethical society like everyone else. Problem is that when you take on your political elements, you take your faith as a zero-sum game, which is what a subset of Islam does, you're inherently waging a war against everyone else. Liberalism, Western liberalism, is not a neutral ground here. It's been treated as this all-encompassing, all views are equal and welcome. It's not the case. This kind of view of neutral Western liberalism is held only by the people who practice it. In reality, your view is that you want to export your faith to the rest of the world. If you believe in the apocalyptic death cult views of extremist fundamentalist Islam, you're not going to coexist peacefully with your contemporaries. And the demographics and the statistics bear this out. Currently, we're seeing an exodus of Jews, for example, from the suburbs and inner cities of Paris, as we're seeing an ever-increasing, ever more extreme parallel society form. This is part political. Is it way out of time?
No, you've got 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Overall, essentially the points I wanted to make with my crudely drawn notes was that there are underlying elements of this ideology which are not represented in our two, but might I say, fantastic speakers here for the proposition. But they are real, and they are part of the faith, and you cannot cherry pick your way and shave off the sides of the faith and then declare that it is compatible with Western liberalism. Taken as a whole, Islam is an inherently political faith that is separate from its contemporaries, and it is a radical extremism which, carried out to the letter, does not mesh well with Western liberalism. You can make a choice between following the rule of law of society or following your faith, and that is an issue that we're still dealing with. I don't have the answer to that as to where you draw that line, but it's something that we need to solve before we go further down it.
Right, so that ends the presentation, and now Mr. President will speak.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. So that was a fairly contentious debate. I would like to point out that I am a bit soft about giving maiden speakers an opportunity to speak beyond their allotted time, primarily because in my maiden speech I, in a gross abuse of the rules, managed to somehow speak for 14 minutes. So I feel like an extra minute is well deserved, because oftentimes it is very hard to gauge in your first speech just how quickly 7 minutes goes by. But anyway, so we shall now move to questions. So this is the point at which the speakers and the floor who have been chomping at the bit to have their piece heard can do so. So to be clear, we take questions for the proposition first, so direct your question to them. Then we take questions for the opposition, so direct your questions to them. And then we take abstaining points. So that can be a question that is addressed to both. Don't try to sneak in any that are clearly addressed to one side. Or you can give a small speech, a very small speech on the motion. So, we shall begin with, yes, Mr. Prediction.
Dear Mr. Chair, I fear the proposition has missed the fundamental point of this debate by making recourse fundamentally to anecdotal examples of Islam. And there is such diversity and disparateness in all the instantiations of Islam and different practices which are so mixed up with all different cultures across the Muslim world, 1.5 billion, so many people. I think we need to return to the very basis of Islam and its roots. So Islam, from its very nascency, was designed as an attempt to project religious values onto the political plane. And that started with the Prophet Muhammad, and he tried to create an Islamic kingdom, and afterwards the caliphs established a caliphate, which was always designed to be a theocracy. And if you look at any preachers, and if you look at the texts, the whole point is creating a theocracy. And in fact, that is the only thing that unites all the different sects and all the different ideas of Islam. Right? You might say, oh, this sect is this sect is peaceful, this sect allows women to do this. But the texts that unite all of them and produce Islam state clearly that all Muslims should live under theocracy. And the problem is, not everyone in Syria, not everyone in Iran, not everyone in Saudi Arabia believes in Islam. And so this is the problem. And the whole point of Western liberalism is that it is secular and there is clear division between religion and state. How can you defend and how can you say that a theocratic Islam, which is what its roots are and always have been, is compatible? So if Islam is really applied in these sects, how is that compatible with Western liberalism and secularism? Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's actually like a huge misinterpretation. So in the beginning of Islam, Prophet Muhammad and his followers were a very small community of maybe about 25 to 50 people. What happened was that they faced a lot of persecution by the tribe at that time. And so the thing is that they actually left Mecca, which is where it started, to Medina, to form their own sanctuary away from people who wanted to kill them and who actually tried to kill them. It just naturally grew into a country over time. And the thing that's really important is that Saudi Arabia, as Rodgers said, only started in 32. Most of the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia were not actually kingdoms, they were tribes. They were tribes, like they were organized by tribal systems, and some of them were Muslim and some of them weren't. Most of these grew to be Muslim over time, but many of these still were Christian and Jewish. They were tribes. The only thing that actually unites all sects of Islam is not the fact that they're political. It's the fact that they believe in one God and that Prophet Muhammad is the last messenger. That's actually the thing. The only things that Muslims are required to believe in, so we have 5 pillars of Islam and we have 6 pillars of Iman. In order to be a Muslim, all you have to do is pray, give charity, fast, say Shahada, and go on a pilgrimage. The 6 things you have to believe in as a Muslim are God, the Quran, the angels, that there will be a last day, the prophets, and in God's divine will. Those are the only things that you have to believe in to be Muslim. That is it. And another thing...
Ms. Belabbes?
Yes. And another thing too, the Quran, only 10% of the Quran is laws, 90% of the Quran is 90% of the Quran is just about God telling stories and about God talking to us about His divine wisdom. So, yeah, only 10% of the Quran is lost.
Thank you, Ms Belabbes. For the opposition,
Give me a minute.
No, sorry, one per side. You can answer the next question.
10 seconds.
Mr O'Neill.
4 words.
Please try and keep the etiquette throughout this debate. It's interesting that Islam was said that it was spread naturally and not through divine conquest, as Muhammad was a military leader who marched on certain cities with an army of over 10,000 people. So the idea of it naturally spreading is interesting. A bit like the Roman Empire spreading Catholicism, these things aren't necessarily.
But it spread through
Please.
Secondly, I think with regard to, maybe I didn't make it clear enough, with regard to compatibility, the reason, as Shifa elegantly pointed out, is that it is a theocracy against our democracy. The Quran's penultimate aim, and it does say this in it, is to spread Islam and to create an all-encompassing caliphate under a religious law. Under a religious law. We followed the Bible right up until basically the Enlightenment, and then we said, you know what, this religion isn't good for us anymore. And that's how we went secular, and look at how our society is spread to everyone in all faiths. With religious law, that's one law, no other discrepancy, and so that's why it's not compatible with what we have here.
I will now take a question for the opposition. For this side. Any questions for the opposition? Miss down there, back. Please stand. Project.
I have a sort of question some point for the guy in the grey sweater. You made a comment saying about there's a direct link between Islam and terrorism. One of the most recent terrorist attacks in London was from a Muslim man stabbing Muslims coming out of a mosque praying. And there's a very popular clip of an interview from a Muslim woman saying the guy clearly wasn't Muslim because it was during Muslim prayer time. If he was actually Muslim, he would have been in the mosque praying too, not outside waiting to stab them. What's your view on that?
Mr. Doherty, respond. Please stand. Please stand.
I think the best way I can describe that is by actually speaking about the different sects of Islam. If you look at it, you have things like the Sunni and the Shias are fighting against each other, which sort of shows you this weird thing of a theocracy of which they're even fighting each other. And yes, as it says here, Muslims are the majority victims of Islamic extremism. So what this actually shows you is that this is such a I'm trying to think of a word without being rude.
That would be advisable, yes. That's a terrible situation, perhaps?
Well, yeah, it's a terrible situation where you have different sects of one religion fighting against each other. So what you could end up with is, I think this is comparable to
the Reformation.
Yeah, it's comparable to the Reformation, in which the Lutherans in Germany fought against the very strong Catholic members of the Holy Roman Empire. Bastards. And so
second time. Second time.
And so what this shows is that it's incompatible because even within its own sex people are fighting each other. So how can you have that in society in which we hate the idea of people fighting each other and want everlasting peace?
Like in Northern Ireland.
Anyone from the proposition like to respond? I'm guessing you, Mr. Raja. No, no one at all? No, you don't have to respond. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm now going to enforce I'll see how this goes. First of all, 2-minute responses from each side. If that is still too long, because I haven't been coming along now thus far, I'll cut it down to a minute. I don't particularly like putting time restraints on intelligent and informative debate, but the House appear to be clamouring for it, so I shall give the people what they want. This is now a point for abstaining on the motion. Mr. Dobbin, do you have a point of abstaining?
Yeah, so it's something that I think has been missing from most of the debate, which I think is absolutely central to it. So I'd like to ask both sides of the House too, in the most clear terms, the most brief terms, and without sugarcoating or explaining how the two connect to each other, what do you think Islam means for the purpose of this debate, and what do you think Western liberalism means for the purpose of this debate? As simple and as plain.
Ask the opposition to respond first.
So Islam is the total surrender to God, through religious law and faith. Western liberalism is, as I did say at the start of my speech, it's the idea of democracy. The demos, people deciding what we want to do, not God. It's the idea of religious freedom for everyone, not one single religion. It's the idea of freedom of thought and freedom of press and freedom of speech and freedom of markets. That is all Western liberalism, and I think that's the distinct difference.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Would anyone from the proposition like to respond? Mr. Aicha.
I think the three of us have already spoken about Islam and what Islam is. So all I'll say is that Islam, according to any of us, or a majority of Muslims, is just a way of life. And the thing about Western liberalism, or any kind of liberalism, in fact, and this is not me speaking, but rather Dr. Alexander from the Union Theological College, because I actually went down to him and spoke to him, and he had to say that liberal societies have sort of taken the concepts of liberalism and freedom of justice and expression from religion, but have conveniently left out all the other aspects that define those religions. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Mr. Solomon, are you away to do what I asked you to do?
Yeah.
Good man. Right, I will now take a point for the proposition. I will take... Mr. Mueller looks so enthusiastic, I couldn't possibly say no.
Well, thank you very much. I wrote something down, so I'm really happy to take it. What is clear is that interpretation and tradition are fundamental to the way any religion is practiced. This suggests, as I think the proposition has shown, that variants of Islam can be very liberal, in the sense that the opening speaker defined at least. However, can you demonstrate that Islam, the way it is practiced by a majority of Muslims today, is compatible in the same way?
Ms. Belabbes?
You know, people always like to say, well, you know, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Pakistan, look at all these countries that are really violent. Why don't you look at Morocco? Morocco was a very peaceful majority Muslim country. Malaysia, Singapore has a lot of Muslims. They just had its first woman president, which, by the way, the U.S. has not had, which so many other. Yeah. Because I feel like always the example of how violent Islam is Saudi Arabia, but my dad and I'm of Algerian descent. Algeria is a very peaceful country. People drink, people smoke, music is very sexual, and that's what it is. Like, our music is really sexual, and people don't go to jail for it. It's a very open country. Women aren't required to wear hijab. Yeah, I mean, there are Muslims throughout the Western world in the United States, such as myself. We're very successful. 10% of all doctors in the U.S. are Muslim. Right now, in Congress, we have 2 Muslim representatives who are both Democratic, and one of them, Keith Ellison, who I've had the privilege to meet, is one of the most liberal members of Congress. So,
thank you,
yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Belabbes. Would anybody from the opposition like to respond to that?
Sure, I do.
MacNamara.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's right into the core issues that we're seeing here at the moment. I think Ms Aicha alluded to some the last point perfectly, which was what is Islam as a way of life. And I've got over here is a series of examples of what about Algeria, what about the United States, and a whole spectrum of the most moderate liberal Muslims, the most extremist, hardened Islamists, and cherry pick them all and put them in and see whether or not they're compatible with Western liberalism. The fact of the matter is, though, is that throughout this debate we're seeing an example of the Notre Scotsman fallacy. I have the same critique of Christianity as I do about Islam, which is your Westboro Baptist Church, for example, is representative of Christianity. Similarly, your Saudi Arabia, your terror cells, your Islamist networks are representative of Islam. To take them and to show that they cannot be irreconcilable with Western liberalism is enough for the opposition to prove its point. I'm going to wrap up real quick so that we'll not spend only. There's another really interesting thing to examine, which is extremists can tick some of the boxes of Western liberalism on the surface. For example, democracy, this would be your, for example, your Turkish model, which is held up as this poster child for the two schools reconciling with each other. It doesn't work. Be it in Egypt, be it in Turkey, be it in Tunisia at the moment, oftentimes elections in democracy for Islamist factions are just a means to an ultimately illiberal end. The point still remains that for the majority of countries that have hardened Islamic voting blocs and Islamic voting plurality in terms of the population believes in, the advice they hold, are not consistent with Western liberalism, and that's just simply the way it is.
Thank you, Mr MacNamara. Okay, we will now take a point for the opposition.
I think especially Conor earlier Conor.
Fellow in the middle and
Conn. So you frequently, and it's sort of slightly hard to say to you, is a lot of, you've accused this of cherry picking, and I would point out that a lot of the time you've been referring to either historical incidents or like specific sects such as Wahhabism, which is where a lot of the extremism comes from, and I think that there is some deviation from the question that it's not a question of whether whether Wahhabism is compatible with modern liberal society, or whether ancient caliphates were compatible with modern Western liberal society, and how would you address that?
I think that's fair. I think everyone has to cherry pick at some stage. But again, forget the historical example. Look literally what's happening in the world, what's going on. I think with regard to compatibility, again, it's just the idea that all we have to prove is that as a Muslim, the one thing that's in the Quran and the scriptures is that the implementation of this full religious law throughout the world. And so, let's say it got to the stage when Muslims held the majority in the UK. As a devout Muslim, you would have to then vote for the politicians who would like to change it to religious law, completely ousting all of our civil framework. And so, at that stage, once we've actually implemented Sharia law, would you say then that they're compatible, considering you've now just binned all of our laws? Is that compatibility? Or is that just replacing one with the other, which is the complete opposite of compatibility?
Thank you, Mr Neill. Would anyone from the proposition like to respond? For the sake of time, I'll ask Mr Aicha to respond. Apologies, Mr Belabbes.
To address the gentleman's point and yours, speaking, and then the lady there. Speaking of theocracy, first of all, what we need to understand was that the holy text of Islam did not just suddenly manifest at 1 second in a period of time. It was actually given down orally over a period of 22 years based on the times in which it did descend. So it does refer a lot of times to the problems that were faced by the people there, but the laws, the very ideals that the text possesses are universal and do transcend time. Now, coming to establishing a Muslim world all over, it really surprises me, because nowhere in the Quran does it actually mention that. In fact, the Quran does give you freedom of expression and religion, and does not pose any kind of restrictions on any person who does not or is not a practitioner of the faith of Islam.
Thank you, Mr. Raja. So we will take one final question, because there's a little thing that I'd like to do before we close up. So this is an abstaining point on the motion, and I direct it to the new fellow down there who hasn't spoken before. If you could state your name, please.
Sir, my name is Clyde Lynch. I'd like to thank everybody for their points. I think it's been an excellent debate. I'd like to thank this gentleman for pointing us towards the practical definition of the motion. And what I'm interested in is what both sides would have to say about the term compatible. I'm interested in hearing what you would think that word actually means. The way I've understood it is you might ask a person that you were interested in marrying, are we compatible together? Will we work together? Will this be a good life for both of us? You might look at your Windows system and your Apple Mac and say, are these two things compatible together? Will they work together? Will they actually achieve the things that they are there for? So I'd like to ask both sides of the motion, what do you think Western liberalism is for? What is its ultimate end and goal? Why does it exist? What do you think Islam is for? What is its ultimate end and goal? Why does it exist? And therefore, will they actually work together to bring about something that they both want? And I directed to both sides of the motion because I haven't heard either of you, to be honest with you, say what those things are for, what they're telling you.
Well, that's good, sir. The proposition, your response first, Mr. Raja seems to be willing.
I'll be very general about this, sir. We need to draw a distinction between compatibility and the word symmetrical. Is Islam symmetrical to Western liberalism? Perhaps not. But then again, is any religion symmetrical to any other ideology in the world? Of course not. Is it compatible? Is there a possibility for a follower of Islam to exist peacefully, coexist in a Western modern world? And all of us here, any Muslim in this part of the world, in this hemisphere, is a living example of that ideology.
Thank you, Mr. Raja. And finally, someone from the opposition like to respond, Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, no one on this side of the House is saying that we can't peacefully exist with Muslims. Absolutely not. Because of Western liberalism. We can live in our society and be at peace, and that's what we want. With regard to your point, our ultimate aims are, again, as I said, all the things that we have, the freedom of speech, the free markets, everything with regard to gender equality, and what is basically taking place in society and the goals we're trying to get to. That's what we're doing. Whereas the ultimate political goal of Islam is religious law. And as you said, it's a way of living your life, which I feel that we want, or else we would have implemented it. Which is why we took religious texts and put them in the bin whenever we started making our constitutions in the late 1800s or early 1800s. Sorry. And so that's what we went for. We went for liberalism. We went for these things that are decided by elected mandates, and we went that way. Whereas Islam is.
Who exactly was this? In the 1800s?
The French Republic. Thank you. And that's basically what we are going for. And Islam, the political goal is religious law, which I personally don't want.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. So, that shall conclude the questions from the floor for this evening. We are fast approaching the end of this debate, and as such, we are fast having a time to...
Point of order for the minutes, please.
Please make order. Okay,
Just a 10-second point.
Point of order, yes, go ahead.
Mrs. Secretary, just one of the options, like just said, we should ridicule Islam, and I don't think for the purposes of this debate we should be ridiculing Christianity, Islam, secularism, anything. If we're going to have a debate, we should be insulting other people, we should be having a rational debate and not doing insults.
Yes, that is a fair point, Ms Dixon. Which member of the opposition said that I missed that?
They shall remain anonymous.
Well, actually, they need to be fined because whilst religious polemic, we have standing orders against religious polemic. Now, such rules would ordinarily be waived for this debate, and they have, however, such a blatant act of disregard where the rules would incur a fine.
Sorry, point of order.
We're not having back and forth points of order. If Ms Dixon won't tell me who it is, then we shall have to proceed. Let it simply be noted in the minutes that that such speech is
I
not
just think
encouraged.
religion should be ridiculed.
Yes,
that's all.
I agree.
I never actually ridiculed it. I said it should be ridiculed.
Yes, but encouraging ridicule
Objection.
for any religion.
I believe it should be treated with contempt, and I believe that's the biggest threat to our society. All religions.
Right, perfect. Anyway, most people here don't care about parliamentary business, and I see the porters outside. So, we're almost done. We're almost done. So yes, considering that this has been a very serious, contentious, and just generally debated debate, I am inviting each side to give a 1 minute, and I swear, if you go over 1 minute, I will bang the gavel until I die. So. Mr. Carver now.
First of all, the House doesn't want, from what I heard, the House doesn't want an extra minute of the debate. Second of all, we're going to start looking at fines for something that was unknowing. There were members of the new members who were unknowingly backing and unknowingly putting up their hands and making points of order during questions, during answering, during protected time. So if things aren't going to be fine for one, you can't do it for the other. There were bylaws for the debate, and that has to be blanket, as I see it.
I disagree, because barking is not an offence that is covered by fines. Furthermore, barking, such as in the case that happened there with Mr Rodgers and Mr O'Neill, is considered to be waived if the person continues to allow the person to speak. You can dismiss, and if you don't engage, I say barking. But if you engage the person, then you've chosen to waive your rights to be free of barking. In any event, quick vote of the House then. Do we wish to not allow each side to give a quick 1 minute summarising speech of their case? All those in favour of not allowing this, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All those against, say nay. All those abstaining, say no. Fair enough. In which case, I would invite our guest chair, Dr Thompson, to give the closing remarks for the debate. Round of applause.
Well, Mr. President, first maybe to thank those who've spoken and to just make one or two quick points. The two questions that were put by those two persons who spoke, addressing questions to both sides, but I think they were very insightful and fair questions, which I think, in a sense, address some of the issues which were missing, which I think would have been important. So, for example, the idea of Islam is a theory about life, so too is liberalism. So it is fair that when we speak about either, we consider what is it best about. It is disingenuous to speak about what it is worst about, or the worst expression of it. So I think the question of what's the best in Islam has to be the point of reference for understanding the issue of compatibility. It is not fair to choose what is the worst about it. So I think that's the point. And in regard to the understanding of liberalism, I do not think we were helped very much in understanding what the proposition understood by liberalism, really. We were left in a place of assumption about what it is. We do not, when we say Western, for example, where do we begin to mark West? What's the demarcation between West and what is not West? When does that begin? These are important things to understand, because these are some of the very issues that Islam, in fact, contains about as to whose thought are you carrying. So the very idea of, in a sense, trying to establish Western liberalism on no foundation, not recognizing its basis and its reliance not only on religion but also on Islam, I think that is disingenuous. It is important to appreciate, in a sense, the religious substrate on which Western liberalism is constructed. So when capitalism and the Protestant ethic was written, it is precisely to show the correlation between the aspirations of Western liberalism and the things that already evidence themselves in what emerged as Protestantism. The final point I make in relation to this is that the idea of, or the inability, I think, to respect and regard the diversity within Islam and the diversity within Western liberalism, I think, in a sense, we do not benefit from that appreciation of the tension within these different, if you like, theories of life and how society should be constructed. And these are the things I just say to keep in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Just like to briefly point out that as I failed to note at the beginning, that Dr. Thompson was a lecturer at Trinity in Islamic Studies and is currently a minister at the Mavian Church?
The Moravian.
I blamed on this before handwriting. So yes, how shall I go to a vote, I do believe. But not before I point out that we have a workshop tomorrow, our first workshop of the semester. At what time, Mr. Dunn?
12 o'clock in Club Room 2. So it's a really informal thing run by a training officer who unfortunately isn't there. If you ever feel nervous about speaking, it's a great thing to come along to. It's the start of many. There should be snacks and drinks at all the way from 12 o'clock in Club Room 2.
These workshops are not meant to merely prepare you for speaking at one of our debates, but just generally to be able to publicly speak. So it'll hopefully be a valuable experience.
I have a question about the workshop.
Can it be asked to me afterwards?
That's what kind of drinks it was.
Oh, Miss Campbell, please.
It's 12 o'clock, Miss Campbell.
Read the house. So yes, we shall now move to a vote. So this is a vote on speaker ability. So to be very clear, speaker ability, not necessarily what you currently believe or how you have been persuaded through the course of this debate. It is which side you believe spoke better this evening. It may seem a bit strange, but that's simply how it is done on the debating circuit. So, all those who wish to vote in favour of the motion of this House believes Islam is compatible with Western liberalism, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Keep them up. I have 19.
16, like 17.
Let's go with 18. Okay, all those who wish to vote against the motion, please raise your hand and say nay. Nay. Keep them up. And all those who think each side spoke equally well or equally terribly, or who wish to express no opinion whatsoever, please raise your hands and say it loud, say it proud, say meh. Whoa, okay, that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15. Mr. Secretary, could you please read back the results to me?
Mr. President, 18 people voted for the proposition, 24 for the opposition, and 15 abstentions.
There you go, the opposition has it! The opposition has it! Now, Mr. Sullivan, is woodworkers available?
There's none. It's pretty full.
Pretty full. In that case, Mr. Conn O'Neill, our social officer, shall be leading you to the parlour this evening. If you wish to pay your motion, get a card, etc., please stay behind and speak to me. Otherwise, the time is 9:15, and you hereby declare this meeting of the House adjourned.
The speakers would just like to take